After the war, the Dutch had been destroyed by all the conflict that had gone on for the last 20 years.
Holland, after the war, was in shambles. There had been a lot of bombing, there was no building really during the war, so after the war there was a very big shortage of housing.
This resulted in mass immigration.
So Opa actually grew up with hearing about immigration.
So a lot of people found that was a way out.
But then my dad got an invitation to go to South America, to Venezuela, and my mom then surrendered sort of and said, okay, let's do that. It's not it's not a strange thought, okay? Because you hear people around you talk about it. So Opa and Oma went together to visit Canada, and we really enjoyed what we saw. And then we got all the okays. So from the consulate, from the medical people, from everybody said, yes, you have enough. Your skills and your diplomas as an engineer, and the health of your kids and all that is good enough to go to Canada.
How did you two meet?
In church?
Yeah.
There was a young people group that came together weekly. Yeah, that's where we got to know each other and enjoy that. I worked in a heavy industry. There were some rules and regulations that you had to follow. I was very particular moment, gloves, not for accident.
Yeah, Opa was actually part of the safety committee, so he knew the rules, and one of them, like it's always wearing safety gloves. But the only place where you're not allowed to wear safety glasses is a drill. Your glove can get caught up in the drill.
Yeah, but those.
Yeah, so the drill got his hand.
The Draft Lottery, a live report on tonight's picking of the birthdays for the draft. Here at Selective Service Headquarters in Washington is CBS News correspondent Roger Mudd.
Good evening. It was 29 years ago that the first and most famous lottery number, 158, was drawn as the United States entered World War II. Tonight, for the first time in 27 years, the United States has again started a draft lottery.
Well, one thing is, I lived 14 years, the first 14 years of my life in northern New Jersey, and in what's called Bergen County. We lived in Teaneck, Richfield Park. Well, New Milford is the first house that my parents bought, and then Richfield Park, and then we moved to Park Ridge. And we had a glen right across the street from our house in Park Ridge. And a glen is like a little valley with a stream going through it. So I used to have so much fun. I loved roaming the glen, and there was a well there. And, you know, there again, like history, where did that well come from, right? Somebody used the well for drinking water, maybe 2 centuries ago. That's where I fell in love with nature. And then when we would come to Canada, it was like outdoors all the time, because we were living on a river, on an island that at that time was accessible by a bridge that was just built. And it's something that I really treasured, and that formed my life a lot. When I was in grade 1, I went to school one day, and in the bathroom I saw a little black girl my age. And I was talking with her, and I thought, this would be a nice person to have as a friend. So we were talking, and we agreed to be friends. And then a few days later, I never saw her again, and I didn't know what happened to her. I found out that that town where we lived had a bylaw whereby no black people could live in that town or work in that town unless it was for the garbage collection agency. And that's what her father did. So they lived somewhere else. They enrolled his daughter at the school. And then I guess somebody raised the issue, and the dad had to take his daughter out of the school. And that racism, which I didn't know what racism was at the time, but was my first powerful exposure to what racism was about. And I just couldn't believe it, what had happened to my friend. And we've never met up again, of course, and who she, what her life must have been like. So I'm a great defender of human rights and acceptance and of differences and, stuff like that.
Hello. Unfortunately, my grandma didn't explain why she moved to Canada. She had 3 other siblings. At that time, the Vietnam War was happening, and her brother, he was going to be volunteered into the army, but her parents really didn't want that to happen, so they moved back to Canada to have a better life.
So one of the things that was always important in my life growing up was a sense of justice and about understanding the world around me. My mom used to take me to different political rallies and talks, demonstrations. I remember going to one for Nelson Mandela in Toronto. These were very forming experiences for me. So much so that when I went to university, I studied international development and anthropology, and wanted to work in the international development field, and had a great deal of passion for the world around us, and knowing and understanding and building bridges with the people that live in this world. I wound up by working at home and working with various churches in ministry roles, and right now specifically working with Salvation Army ties together all of those pieces for me. Working with Salvation Army is about caring for our community, about bringing hope with dignity, with integrity, with stewardship, and with giving hope to people. So I work with a group of international students on Tuesday evenings, and Canadian students, building bridges between them, serving a meal, becoming a family and a source of connection and community for them. It's been a very powerful experience in my life, and a powerful experience from what I understand in the lives of the students that are able to find a home where we create one on our Tuesday nights. We spend a lot of time at our dinner table talking about justice issues. From when the kids were very young, they have an older brother. Ben has an older brother, Eli, and so he's 11 years older, and so he grew up with a lot of more adult conversations around the dinner table, talking about politics, talking about world issues and justice, and it's definitely been something that's a core piece of our family. We've gone to different speakers, different rallies, not quite as many as I did when I was young. I haven't taken them to quite as many as I went to, but we definitely talk about important issues in our home, so much so that, you know, his Eli, my oldest son, is a journalist, and he's incredibly passionate about politics.
So I was born and raised in the Netherlands, and being a small country, we had a lot of other countries close by, and we did a lot of traveling. And one of the key things that we always did is learn the culture of the places we traveled, to explore the history, the architecture, to explore the way people build houses, the way people travel, the way people live as families. And then when we finally immigrated, we first moved to British Columbia, and we did a lot of traveling there. Shortly after, we ended up moving to Ontario, and we kept up with always trying to explore different things. Even coming to Ontario, we ended up driving all through all the provinces and pulling a big U-Haul trailer. We'd take family trips, and when we went camping, it wasn't just camping at a campground for a week or two. We would never stay in a campground for more than a day or two. We would pack our stuff, we would set up in a campground, explore that area, and the next day we'd travel to the next area and explore that area and stay in a different campground. It was always seeing as much as we could and talking to people and talking to, learning as much as we could from people.
And I think that sense of adventure and curiosity about the world has carried through to our relationship and our marriage as well. We haven't always had the resources to do as much traveling as we'd liked, but we've been able to travel to Kenya, to Zambia, to Guatemala, Nicaragua. We've traveled across the country in Canada by car and by train, and to several of the states. And even if it's not traveling to a particular place, we're always very curious about, being and living and immersing where we're planted and exploring the people and space around us. This wall behind us has some of our pieces of our travel, from Indigenous art from Vancouver to a couple of things from our time in Africa as well. To your family, from immigrating, your family is very close.
Yeah, we because we left all my aunts and uncles, my grandparents, and everybody in Holland, and it was just the five of us: my brother, my sister, and my parents, and me, and I was the youngest, and it's kept us close, and because we had each other. When we had grandparents' day at school, we didn't have grandparents, so we'd kind of get other people to be our grandparents. A city next over and finding cousins, it just didn't happen because that would be in a different continent.
And so connection is really important for us, and that's something that you've definitely shared with me, and we've carried through to our children, I think, as well, I hope. When I was younger, I experienced a lot of bullying, and bullying in school, both in the form of being physically assaulted in elementary school in Montreal, and also a lot of alienation, like isolation from my classmates. And that really had a profound impact on me, not only on my feelings of self-worth, but also on just wanting to be able to make sure that everyone feels that they have a place to belong. I never want people to walk into a room and feeling like they're not connected. And that's been a powerful thing in my life. One, that I am anchored in my faith, to know that I am worthy and cared for, and that I am perfectly and wonderfully made. That anchors me. But then also being able to have compassion and care, and to really see when people are feeling isolated and alone, and really wanting to create that space of belonging.
One time in my life that's really stood out, which is still a big part of my life today is when I was in college, I went to Mohawk, and I was looking for a Christian group, and apparently so were a few other people, and a bunch of us ended up creating a group that consisted maybe about 12 people. The funny thing is, within those 12 people, I think we represented about 10 different churches, completely different churches. So this made for some incredible talks as to why we believe what we believe, why we do the things we do. And instead of separating us, which would be a natural thing, we could just be separated by differences, it was the things that were the same that brought us closer together, and that allowed us to talk about those things that were different. And it's been a real cool experience to because everybody in that group, and the group grew a little bit since that, but it strengthened and made us think about what we believed. And yeah, it was a real inspirational time in my life. It's something that has really built that faith within me.
Stories. History. Things that shape identity. Something was left out of Opa's story. When he lost his thumb, he didn't swear. He said, "Ow." This taught me that I didn't have to do or be what other people wanted me to be. I could be who I am. I can make my own identity. My family's Christian, and if it's real or if it's not real, it still changes who I am. It changes who I spend time with. It changes what I believe, and it changes how I perceive myself and my identity. My family loves to learn about people from other places around the world. And understanding people is a huge part of my identity and allows me to make them feel known. A few international students came over on Thanksgiving, and they talked about their hometown, and I knew where it was, and they said that made them feel more welcome. Unfortunately, not everything about family history can be the greatest. All of my family at some point came from Europe to America. And this means that a lot of my family history is the same or similar. So there's some things I just won't ever be able to experience. I'm done. Good night. Never again am I making this.